if the only thing that you need to do is underwrite and negotiate deals, that's ultimately the bottleneck. And so if I put myself in the land business, ultimately I'd become the bottleneck. And so the way to solve that bottleneck is by
What's up, everybody? It's Mason McDonald and Dan Haberkas with another great episode of the Big Picture Blueprint, where today we get to talk about an industry within the land investing sphere that has created a bunch of businesses, some of which are great, some of which are not. And our guest today really had a lot to say about both. But before we get into things, Dan, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's a busy time of year, working on some bigger deals. I'll be headed back to Colorado next week. Look at some stuff in person, so pretty good. How about yourself?
Yeah, things are good. Driving down south to your business neck of the woods in Pueblo to negotiate what could be a pretty big land deal. But why don't you intro our guest?
Yeah, so today we have Brandon Parker. Now, Brandon founded Landy Leads, and it's a turnkey land operation business that builds the whole engine for land investors. So he's got over 40 people, and they handle everything from data gathering to delivering the fully qualified leads. And that's really key. We talk a lot about that because a lot of third-party vendors give you questionable leads. So he started flipping houses. That was his first foray into real estate. And now he manages over 5 million cold calls a year and more than 10 million in land deals annually. And he's an interesting guy, former helicopter pilot and NCAA champion, which he played soccer, which I know nothing about. And he specializes in helping land investors scale their businesses, essentially, so they can focus on closing and dispoing deals. So this was a great conversation for anyone in any form of real estate where they're going direct to seller to generate leads. So let's bring Brandon in now. All right, Brandon Parker, welcome to the show.
good day.
Absolutely. Well, you've got quite the background, and I really want to dive deep into the business you've built today, but I think it's important to understand how your background has fed into the success you've been able to create. So you're a former helicopter pilot and you played soccer. You're NCAA champion. Can you give us a little bit of your background and how that led to you starting Landy Leads, the business you own today?
Yeah. So I actually I haven't told this story before, but this is a wild way to start. When I was 15 years old, my dad drowned. And so I left home. I went from California to Florida. In Florida, I lived with my aunt and I worked at a airport and made friends with a old crusty pilot who smoked Marlboro Reds and rode a street bike. And took me under his wing. And then I started using the money that I was getting from washing helicopters and sweeping the hangar to get flight training. And so just very randomly, 16 years old, I was flying helicopters and was very reckless. And so I'm glad I'm here today. But yeah, that's kind of a random story around helicopters. As far as that, I took that all the way through, became a commercial airline pilot, flying fixed wing, and did that for a lot of my, through college and through my playing soccer and all that. I was flying airplanes and flight instructing and that type of thing. So that was that's a cool little interesting nugget there. And I don't fly now. I love business. I'm a natural entrepreneur. So part of building Landy Leads, getting into land, very natural progression. I did real estate in college. I flipped houses, built businesses, did some brick and mortar. And then what drew me to the land business was I love real estate. Has a lot of all the fun parts of real estate, in my opinion, but without the pest inspections and foundation problems and, all those extra things those little details aren't my favorite part. I love the idea of wide open raw land. And so, and the other part that draws me into land is the type of person that works in land. Each person that I meet seems to be a natural entrepreneur. It's someone who looks at a bare piece of acreage and just says, I'm going to go make money off that. I'm going to build a road, or I'm going to subdivide it, or I'm going to get it for cheap and sell it for more, or every single land deal is creative. So it draws this type of person that is just a business savage to some extent. And so I like all the people that I meet in the space. And so that's why I ended up building an agency around that space. A lot of it's because of the people that I get to work with.
Okay, interesting. So there's a lot to unpack there, but it sounds like your first real foray into land was building the agency. Is that correct, or were you doing off market deals as well? Or what did that first or those first few deals actually look like?
Yeah. So it looked like transitioning from real estate into land flipping. Did my first land flip, then got in touch with Colruyt Johnson, who builds call centers. And I thought, oh, I'm going to build my own call center and drive deals to my land business. Built a call center didn't build a call center, outsourced a BPO call center in Belize with 3 callers and started just cranking through leads. And then almost instantly a couple of people were like, hey, I want some leads too. Can I hire a caller? And so I quickly pivoted into refining the call center, refining what good cold calling looks like, trying to get QA in place. And then there's so much to tackle as far as just running a quality call center goes, is that I diverted my attention away from land and just started trying to make the best call center possible for these new clients I had. And that was over 2 years ago now. And it just grew into something that's unrecognizable at this point. Now I am anti-lead gen. Now my take is I don't like lead gen companies. I think that, so anyway, that's my hot take. But so we've evolved quite a bit from that first little dipping the toes in the water.
Small world. Cole was down here. I met him a couple months ago. Apparently he actually lives down here. I guess talk with him a bit, and it seems like he really knows his stuff when it comes to cold calling for real estate deals.
He's the best. I consider him my mentor. He's why I'm here. So legend.
Brandon, talk to me about the potential hypocrisy of the statement that you don't like lead gen companies, because your company is called Landy Leads, and if I'm not mistaken, you are a lead gen company.
Yeah, it's hot take. So what I found rolling into the lead gen business is that generating the leads is fairly easy. There's a ton of gray area there. Like, how good are the leads? Most of the time they suck, especially with cold calling. And behind this, Wizard of Oz curtain, no one knows what's happening. You could have a BPO with 100 callers and you're barely managing any of them. You're sending bad leads. The data, a lot of things could make the leads poor. And there's not a very good way to know the difference between a good lead and a bad lead, because, your conversion rate's going to be 1 out of 70 leads or 1 out of 100 leads. It's like, who knows? It's hard to get the difference there. So the operations is one part that's kind of hidden that makes lead gen kind of hard for the consumer. The other thing that's hard for the consumer is, like, lead gens, honestly, it's kind of the easy part. Like, just getting 100 leads. People go get 100 leads for themselves. The hard part is, how do people qualify those leads? Like, how do you sort through the leads? When 100 leads comes in a week, what do you do to manage those and get to the good ones so the cream rises to the top? And then what do you do to nurture those over time so that you've gathered these 100 leads, they don't just all disappear into the ether and you don't get any value out of them? And so why I'm anti-lead gen is because it's like it's the easy part. It's the part that kind of like anyone can do. And so when we started doing that, just pushing leads on people, the standard process is someone comes in, they want some leads. You give them 60 leads a month for 2 or 3, 4 months, and then they churn out. And they churn out because they say, I have too many leads. Like, you did your job too good. I have too many leads. I have to deal with these. And so I realized, it's not about lead gen. It's about dealing with lead gen. It's about dealing with the leads that come in. And so that's the problem to solve. That's the actual hard problem. So a bunch of lead gen companies do the easy part, just like get out here and dump leads on people. But everyone skips the hard part, which is like, how do those leads get processed, handled, refined, qualified, followed up with, nurtured?
Yeah, no, I think I resonate a lot with what you're saying, because that's my frustration with lead generation companies. And, we all know the same people, and a lot of people do a good job. Some people don't. But I think where I see one of the biggest holdups and headaches in this business, and I'll relate it to my background in healthcare, is the handoff of the lead, which is an extraordinarily subjective definition of a person that exists on the other end of a phone, to the actual land flipping, land investor operator, and how much leakage there is, where, we would get what is seemingly a qualified lead, and then we're never able to get in contact with them. So talk a little bit about that, black box of, from whenever you or your company makes contact, to the handoff of how you actually create a successful transition that the operator is then able to close an actual deal.
Yeah. So there's each part where the leakage can happen. So in the very beginning, where does the data come from? First, like market selection. Generally, land investors are decent with market selection. Then the data, where's that come from? Is it coming from data tree, or like, prop stream, where you're getting free data? So you get higher quality data. Then where's it being skip traced? And then what extra scrubs are being done? Sometimes there's people who will scrub with reworked.ai. I don't know if you've seen them or not, but that's an interesting take. I only have a couple people who are using that, but that scrubs for the human. So it looks at the demographics, and it'll basically eliminate people who are very unlikely to sell. However they do that algorithmically. So then there's the data. Then there's the call center. So the actual dialer management. You can have good data, but if the call center is being managed poorly and the drop rate is too high, let's say you're dropping more than 3% of calls, then a bunch of it's getting reported as spam. And now you're burning through numbers really quickly because they're showing up as spam on the phone. And so the data will get burned through without being useful, or you haven't done the extra effort to pre-register with all the different call carriers. So each of those numbers is getting now labeled as potentially spam. And so it's burning through data too quickly. So this is all before it even gets to the dialing. Then, of course, on the phone, this is what I consider the magic of call centers, is someone on the phone. You can have someone sitting in Ohio who has a perfect American accent, sounds like me, but they're just kind of at a call center, basically. They don't care about their job. They're like making the call, going through the motions, pushing leads. You can also have someone in the Philippines who has not as good of an accent, but gets paid 50% above market rate, is on a team where they have team parties and they're all in Slack together celebrating their wins. They have a competitive dashboard where they see exactly where they're standing in the company. They're getting bonuses for different things. They're following a script. They're being QA'd. They're getting coaching weekly. They're hyped on their job and the culture. And that comes through on the phone. So, so now you have, the caller. What are they doing? Then you get to the actual call. What's that script look like? I think the script is, we've done 5 million cold calls last year and then been refining the script. I got my original script from Coleridge Johnson, who did, however many millions of cold calls before that. So I think the script is like, it's still getting tweaked, which is weird, but it's pretty good. Then the handoff is the Hormozy style handoff, where it's so the two most important parts of the script, which you hit on there. The beginning of the script is some sort of hook that grabs them and just keeps them there. So every single line has to get them to listen to the next line. And so that's one part of the script that we train on heavily, is how did the call open? And then the handoff at the end of the call is the Hormozy handoff. And this is actually something that we're just shooting a training on now to try to get this like refined, because this is the part where you want to say, okay, a Mason is going to be giving you a call. He is really experienced in this area. He's been working there for years. He's one of the best, most knowledgeable people you could talk to about this. So you're going to be in great hands with Mason, kind of pre-hyping the person that this call is going to land with. We don't do that well now. And so that's the thing that we're putting that's our call training. That's the next round of call training that we're going to focus on really hard. Then from there, from there, what happens, that's a call center. That's a lead gen company right there. From there, it goes to the client. I have all kinds of takes on other things that could happen after that, but that's what a lead gen company does. That's what a great lead gen company does. And there's some great lead gen companies out there that do a lot of that, but I don't like lead gen.
Okay. I'm curious, there's a lot there because we went through the whole process, but backing up to data to the dialer, you mentioned the different sources for data. You mentioned several places where people are often tripping up, not getting their numbers pre-registered is a big one, whitelisted. Where else do you think most investors who are cold calling are going wrong? Is there anything else you commonly see that's an easy fix that is really costing us?
I think it's probably somewhere in the how the VA is being managed, like how the person on the phone is being managed. I think the most common thing that I see is someone hires a VA who cold calls and just hands them a script and says, bring me leads, but then doesn't necessarily get in and listen to the calls every day and QA the calls and have some sort of script that's measurable that they can go back to and say, hey, you want to do this part this way, those trainings, because the incentives, and I find this in a big call center too, is like the incentive for a cold caller is to push the measurable deliverable through. They want to push a lead through. And so someone's going to say like, I'm not really sure if I want to, this, I might sell. And then they'll just push it through. Like, I want to get my numbers. I want to get my 3 or 5 leads today. And so they just push through all kinds of garbage. And that seems to be the bottleneck, is the management of the people doing the cold calls. And most of the time I see it just deferred. They're like, I'm going to hire a cold caller, and then they know what to do. And they did kind of defer that responsibility. And that's a business concept that, the difference between delegating and deferring. And I think that I see that people defer that to the cold caller often. And so I would say one of the quick fixes, and this is a cool thing that Elon Musk does, which I thought I was like, how does this dude manage all these crazy businesses? Like, what does he tactically do? So what he does is he goes to the business. He looks at what's the current bottleneck in the business right now. And then he drives personally into that department and that specific bottlenecks. And he sits there and fixes it with them himself. So he gets drills down, does nothing else, and dedicates all his resources to fixing this single bottleneck. And then he pops out and he leaves the team and he goes and next company finds the next bottleneck and he just rotates through doing that. So anyway, I think that applies to some extent with cold calling. If you're hiring a cold caller, like at some point you need to just dedicate your entire resources and time into making sure that they're nailing it. And I don't think most people do that.
Yeah, I think that's well said. It's there's a lot of management involved. I really want to get into that, but I have one more thing to ask, or to kind of say and then ask, on the whole topic of qualified leads, of having a cold caller who's properly incentivized and isn't just putting data in the system of, yes, this person answered, and at least claim to be the owner. Because that's the problem I've run into. I think Mason could comment as well. Third-party sources we've used just were basically sending us, yes, this is this person's number. And that's about it. That was their version of a lead. And so for my in-house guys that are calling, looking back at dozens and dozens of deals we've done, a qualified lead, because you got to be able to differentiate pretty quickly or you'll waste a lot of your time with people that just want market or 2 times market. A qualified lead for us almost always gives us some indication of price. And so we really, really push asking that, 3 or 4 different ways on the first call. Is there anything that you found, whether it's that or something else, to be really key in getting them, or some sort of indicator that tells you whether or not it's a lead worth pursuing further?
I love this question because I've spent like 2 years trying to solve it, and I feel like I'm on the cusp of actually pulling this off. So, I think that the other thing that I would add there is possibly getting to the motivation, like some sort of core motivation. And the way that we're trying to do that is through open-ended questions and then mirroring questions. AJ Sharma has a pretty sharp question that I like. It's, hey, you bought this property back in 1996. It looks like, what was the original plan for that property? Oh, I was the seller. Oh, I was going to hunt it with my son, or, and then followed by a mirroring question. So just repeating the last three words with a questioning tone. Hunt it with your son? Oh yeah, we were doing a hunt it, but yeah, now I moved away to college and now we don't use the property anymore. Bang. Like, okay, that's the actual motivation. And so like those open-ended questions and then a couple mirroring questions, maybe even mirror 2 or 3 times, but get the actual motivation. I think the key is getting salespeople or a method that can actually refine those leads and get to the core motivation is the magic sauce. And that's kind of what I've been working on. And that's what, that's what we're building.
That's great, and appreciate that you have a definition of qualified lead. I see it on your FAQs on the website, and it's the same thing you just said right there, which is great. And that's something that operators at least have the chance to convert into an actual deal. But something that you talked about, you did 5 million some odd cold calls last year, and one of the most important aspects of that is the management of the callers, which involves listening to recordings of these cold calls. How are you able to effectively get a great sample size of listening to all these recordings? Is it humans that are doing the listening? Is it AI that you're utilizing to assist in the management? What advice can you provide, and how are you doing it to manage cold callers?
So we did it the same as everyone else in the past. I just like to think that we systematized it and worked a little bit harder. But we were just pulling samples and coaching weekly and QAing manually. We have solved that issue because that's a big bottleneck. Is like, okay, you make 5 million cold calls, but you're listening to 1,000 of them. Like, how's that gonna? It's everyone runs into that same problem. We built a integration that goes to AWS, pulls the raw file, transcribes it, puts it through AI, listens to every single cold call, and then grades it on a score to 1 to 3. 1 is you shouldn't have sent this through, it gets kicked out. 2 is it's a lead, and 3 is it's a hot lead, and then pushes that into the CRM. So that eliminates that perverse incentive for cold callers to push through bad leads to get their numbers. And that's like solving that problem. I haven't got to see the full effects of it yet, but that's going to be massive. And then the other thing it does is, so that's one branch of what the AI does. The other thing it does is it QA scores the call. It listens to the intro and the different sections with prompts and like kind of a sentiment analysis, and it will grade the call and then kick back red flags. And so now we just QA calls that got booted out that shouldn't have been sent through, or any red flags in the calls. And then we have an overall score, but I don't have data on how well that percentage score we're giving works yet. But now we're getting every single call, and that's going to be a huge change in the efficiency of the business. What I expect is that we're going to get a massive increase in the quality of the leads being sent through, because there's no way to stop. This is why I hate lead gen. It's because there's no way to stop. Well, before what we've been building, it's hard to stop garbage from slipping through. It's hard to stop cold callers from sending stuff when you can't QA every single call,
So what is the incentive structure of the individual cold callers? Because is it based on qualified lead, total leads, just output? How do you ensure that they're totally aligned with the mission of the organization and the long-term goals that you have, especially whenever there is the reputation of lead gen companies not being great, which I think you hold that sentiment dearly.
Yeah. Um, so the incentive structure, so it's the number of leads they pass through. It's the qualified leads to the number of leads they pass through ratio. And then it is their QA score and then their attendance. And it goes into an algorithm that gives them a percentage, and then they're ranked on a leaderboard. And so those are the important things. Like, okay, are you pushing through leads? Like, are you nailing it? But are they good leads? And then are you coming to work all the time? And is your QA score high enough? Like, are you doing it how we want you to do it? And that seems to be, that's worked for us. That's what we've been doing for a while. And the fun thing about that is that actually builds culture as well. Everyone's kind of semi-competing. They don't want to miss a day of work because they're high on the leaderboard, and that'll kick them down. So it solves a lot of problems. And they're all in a single Slack channel, and they post every lead they get, they post in there. And so it's like this, it's like this moving board of just people like cheering each other on and, racing. And so, that's the incentives, and we pay them on holidays. We give them time off. Like it just, I think cold calling, that job, I was actually a, inside sales rep for a biotech company. So I've spent 8 hours a day on the phone. I've spent 12 hours a day on the phone. I've made hundreds of calls, and I know that job's not the most fun thing in the world. And so I love our cold callers. So I try to give them bonuses, random stuff all the time.
Interesting. Okay. So continuing along the lines of people management, let's talk more about the front end of that. What does your hiring process look like? It sounds like you've built a really good culture. How do you ensure that the people you're bringing on the team align with that culture and fit in for the long term?
So we have a Facebook group with 8,000 people in it, and it is around the call center and cold calling. And the people in that group are basically work from home, want cold caller, phone rep type people. And so they're in there, and we have a post going in there, and we are just consistently interviewing. So we always have a couple people waiting in the wings. And then we have our team, and then people are always on the bubble because, we keep cold callers at a 1-to-1 ratio with the clients. So if we ever drop a client, then the person at the bottom that's been performing the least we let them go. And so, and then as far as training people, we bring them in, and then they go through through our script training modular, and they are on the phones immediately, but then part-time. And then we make them go through an entire month and earn their way onto the phones. Basically, they got to make it through our whole training process, and then their numbers and their QA scores and everything have to be good enough. And then they go full time on the phones. And then after a month of performing, they get a pay raise.
Okay. I like that. You created your own pipeline of future employees to draw on whenever you need. So these people are all in the Philippines?
Yeah, our whole team is in the Philippines, and our whole hiring funnel is there. So how we've kind of found a niche in the Philippines is because of our company culture. Understanding the call center culture in general is good. It's like, this is a job that people come in and they have for 1 to 3 months, 1 to 6 months. It's like very tentative. The companies fail. They don't pay their employees. Like, the call center business is unstable. And so they're very used to this. Like, they're usually not coming in as a career type thing. They're coming in as like, I'm going to work here for a few months and then maybe get fired. Maybe the company goes out of business. Maybe they stop paying people. They're very jaded. And so what we offer, we have a great reputation. And so what we offer is stability, high pay, good company culture, work from home. And so we're able to attract the best talent, and we have people waiting in line to try to work for us. And so that's the competitive advantage as far as where we are in our hiring funnel.
Interesting. So work from home. So all these people are just spread out then over the Philippines, just working from their house.
Yep, yep. It gives resilience because the Philippines gets hit by hurricanes and all kinds of stuff, and the power goes out in Manila, and the call center's down, and so you have to have another call center in Egypt as a backup. And so, I'm like I try to be a first principles thinker, so I have some like big ideas on a lot of these things and where they're going. But one of them was just the idea of a physical call center makes no sense to me. I know that people, even Cole, will still say that you got to have a call center because these reasons you can manage people, you can watch them. I think that's a solvable problem, to be honest. I don't see any difference between people working from home. I think it might be better because they get to, I mean, dude, it's a call center. No one wants to go. I can't imagine going check in, sitting in a plastic chair in a call center for 8 hours. Like that sounds like a nightmare. I want my people where they're comfortable, and we're doing well like that.
You said it's a solvable problem. How are you solving that and successfully having your employees remote?
It's about the culture, and so it's about the measurable deliverables and the culture. And so it's hard because you have to somehow get everyone on the same page, measure that they're actually working, and monitor them all the time. So we're output based. And so we can look at ready mode. We have someone monitoring ready mode. We have a very strict policy on being online, how long you can have between calls. Just all of that's measured so specifically that they can't necessarily slack without it showing up in their reporting. And so we don't need to do any screen sharing or anything. We can just look at the outputs and we can tell what's happening. And so but it's not just about micromanaging their time. It's about everyone being in Slack and active. And it's like they have an online culture, it's like having an active Discord or something. They're just there living and having a good time. And so, it's a combo of really, really strict measurement, but also having them want to be there and like want to be working at this job and like the people that they're interacting with.
So what does your org chart look like at, maybe a more senior management level? I can't imagine, you say, I have a person for this. What's your leadership team look like? And are they all US based or are they in the Philippines as well?
So, org chart is, me as CEO. Then I have a COO. That's Spencer Cox. He's from 8-Figure Agency. And, he's just like extremely sharp with systems. He's in, Southern California. And then Zach is our CTO, and he's the one who is exceptional with AI and with development. And he's the one building out a lot of these crazy things we're building. So that's our leadership. Under that sits Mar, and he is our operations manager. And he runs the entire show underneath that. Then we have all the management level of, data managers, CRM manager, lead managers, campaign manager, and then we have all the cold callers. And so,
got it. And are all of the members of your management and leadership team full time with you, or are they fractional position?
Everyone full time. I tend away from fractional because I want such wild buy-in. Like we're building an actual tech company we're going for it. Like if I text someone something in Slack, I want to answer now, basically, because and so that's how our whole team operates. So it needs to be full time. One of our core company values is, we call it face melting speed, but we like to move fast. It's like we're working on something. And so if someone's a blocker on something, they can't be just non-responsive in Slack because other people are waiting for you. So we have a really strong team environment, and it requires full time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's really hard to fight a battle on two fronts, and you'll find out where people's priorities lie whenever there's crises in both directions. But Brandon, you've built this agency. You're at 5 million-ish calls per year. You've probably got a few dozen or 100 clients or something like that you're working with. Where do you see this going in 5 years or 10 years?
Well, so I just sent a tweet today that CRMs are almost irrelevant in the future. If Mason, if you could tell me you want land leads in Texas, and after that, all that matters is that you get on the phone with someone interested in talking about selling their land, and that you have all the relevant information you need to negotiate that deal. I think everything in between you saying that and that happening can be abstracted away. That's kind of our North Star, is like that.
So explain that a little bit more. I think in general, in whatever industry it is, there's a certain amount of decentralization going on. And I can hear what you're saying, but what does that look like on your end? What is the technology that you're implementing to take so much of the responsibility off the hands of the operator? And then also within that, why provide that services versus manage that in-house, and keep the land business in-house too, rather than giving away all these leads and all these deals if you're able to operate at that level of effectiveness and efficiency.
If the only thing that you need to do is underwrite and negotiate deals, that's ultimately the bottleneck. And so if I put myself in the land business, I'd become the bottleneck. And so the way to solve that bottleneck is by offloading it to 20 exceptional operators, and then I can push volume and they can eliminate the bottleneck. So that's longer term why I think that that's the play. And I'm just having fun building a business. Like when I see that, I'm like, okay, let's go with that theory. A lead comes in, instead of just a raw lead landing in your plate, it gets magically qualified with a combo of humans and AI and text and email, RVM and phone calls, and it gets magically qualified. And then it gets put through a CRM, could be an invisible CRM. If it's ready, it gets passed off to a client with comping and all the due diligence done, and then they can talk to it. If it's not ready, it goes into some long-term conversational nurture sequence where it's just babysat forever. And then if it comes back to life, it gets passed to the client with all the stuff they need to negotiate. So that's what I envision it looking like.
Interesting. So you've mentioned artificial intelligence quite a few times. You mentioned scoring the leads. What else are you using AI for, or planning to use AI for in the future?
Well, we actually just launched our lead revival engine, and we launched it to our clients who are currently with us, where we've rolled it out to 3 of them now. So we're rolling it out in phases and getting feedback, but we're taking all their dead leads, and then we're having AI conversations with them, reactivating them. And then if they reactivate, we're dropping them into the hot list in their CRM to have a conversation with them. So I think that's low hanging fruit in the land business, is just re-engaging dead leads. That's one of the issues with lead gen, is we send people thousands of leads. They follow up with hundreds of them, but then the other hundreds or thousands disappear. And so being able to go back and milk value out of all that stuff people paid for already is low hanging fruit. And so we're doing that right now. We spent too much money and like 3 months building that, and way more than that, way more than 3 months, but like dedicated 3 months to building that. And so, yeah, we just launched that. So that's one thing. And then there's the other things that we are building right now are similar to that. And I'm being a little bit cryptic because I want to because we have cool stuff coming, but I can't necessarily like uh give it all out there yet until we get something built. So I don't want to overpromise.
Okay. You know, one thing you've got me thinking, one thing we've seen over and over again is we'll be doing business somewhere. There'll be a section of that market or maybe a subdivision within the market that is really cheap and not really worthwhile. And then over time, over the years, if this is in a growing area, like a lot of places in the Southeast and in 2020, 2021 in the Mountain West, these areas would skyrocket in price when a nearby city got more and more expensive. Eventually, people kind of just throw out their hands and move to that second or tertiary market, and prices go nuts. I mean, I've watched this over and over again. There's a place in North Carolina that we're benefiting from this right now. I would wonder, or have you looked into any sort of AI scrubbing tool that can look for that sort of thing, price acceleration, anything? Does that get, I don't know. I wanted to kind of hash that out. Is that something you've worked on at all?
I haven't worked on that. I think that there's a lot of companies who are working on some really cool stuff on the data end. And so that's kind of something that we would use their tool as opposed to building it ourselves. So I keep my eye on that a lot. I love Land Insights. I like their team. They're going hard. You know, they're putting resources and developers in the building. So I like what they're doing. And so I use Land Insights for market research. I like their new comping tool. But yeah, that's not touching on what you're saying. I found this company because it was a website I was looking for. I think it's called Land Engines. I didn't look super deep into it, but it has something to do with looking at the they're starting to implement some technology within cities, looking for the like infill lots that are highest and best use, and then giving the numbers of like what you could build there, what type of apartment you could build there. So it's not specifically what you're talking about, but there are people that are building like data technology and research technology that's happening all over the place. So I wouldn't be surprised like if this year there's something that does exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. What made me think of it is you talking about reviving dead leads. And I'm thinking of this place in North Carolina where we threw away so many leads there because they used to sell for $6,000 to $8,000. And now they're selling for 30 to 40, and pricing expectations from sellers haven't changed. Right. And so and this is not the first time I've seen this over and over again. So if there was a way to mesh, price acceleration with your dead leads and see, these are the ones we really need to target, where maybe we can give the seller what they're asking before, that could be quite powerful.
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, you could just look at price acceleration, couldn't you? Like that might be an interesting one for Land Insights to tackle, because I know that they're already pulling the data. They're already having historical data, and then they have comps. It would just be a different calculation for like acceleration rate type of thing. Acceleration rate over 6 months, acceleration rate over a year, acceleration rate over 3 months, then just sort those. And then all of a sudden that's a pretty cool angle. I like that, Dan. Yeah. Sweet.
Well, Brandon, I like what you're saying of, you can't expand the scope to every single aspect of it, from being the one that's taking down the lots yourself to, full analysis of all of the, market data and indicators and everything, but kind of within the scope of, I don't necessarily want to call you a lead gen company, but, from the lead, the agency perspective of, doing this lead generation, do you see yourself expanding into some of those other services that we talked about, or are you already doing them? And what I mean by that is the texting, the ringless voicemail, social media, direct mail, all the different marketing channels that exist.
So, yeah, I think a word what we're looking to do is like pipeline automation. So from market research through handing you I should say data scrubbing through handing you a qualified lead and everything in between. And so, yeah, those other things like omni-channel marketing definitely falls in that tech stack. especially where I see AI going. With RVM, text, email are all digital, so those are much more intriguing to me than mailing. I think mailing will always be there, but that would probably be the last thing that we would address.
And then do you plan on ever offering these services to other industries where you're creating this, pipeline generator that is giving qualified leads, but a lead is a lead, whether it's land or houses or apartments or commercial, or even outside of the scope of real estate and real estate investing, for the entrepreneur?
Yeah, that comes up about quarterly in our company. Hey, we need to open, we should open a new channel. For sure, that comes up often. What we keep landing on is we have so much more to build in the land niche. We still, if we were to someday just somehow deliver this end-to-end product, omni-channel marketing, over-delivering massive value, and then we might think about that. But for now, it's kind of eye on the ball. But that thought comes up more often than it should, because I'm dangerous with ideas. Like at any point that's why I need my CEO. He's like, hold up, let's stay in our lane here. So yeah, we're trying to vertically integrate in land first.
Where do you think you can take it to within land? I know 40 employees, 5 million cold calls. What is it? What do you think you can get that to in the next 3, 4, 5 years?
I think we get 5 times the size we're at now. And I think that once we scale, once we get the technology we're building, all these automations and all these AI follow-ups and outreach and omni-channel marketing and this like digital end-to-end digital infrastructure where a person can say, here's a bunch of data, and then we just start saying, here's qualified leads, and we're following up with them. Once that whole thing is really built out nice, then the idea is something that Mason hit on. It's like, okay, well, what do you do then? Then maybe we start looking at who are the top producer, like who crushes it in land, who are the best operators here. And then maybe we start narrowing it back down to just the best operators, and we just start pushing them far more scale. Like, okay, you 20 people or you 10 people are exceptional. Let's kind of team up, and let's try to send you 10 times as many leads, because now that we have this whole system built, the operator becomes the bottleneck. So then that might be the longer term play.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll be curious where you end up going, and I definitely can relate to the temptation of wanting to move out of your lane. Whether it be apartments or houses, there's some big players in those spaces. But anyways, all right, Brandon, as we head towards the end of the show, there's a couple questions we like to ask everybody. First of which, is there anything we didn't ask you that we should have?
I just want to throw out there, if I didn't make it clear already, we are building an interesting tool to expand how we get to leads and what we do with leads and how we qualify those leads, and that we're putting all of our time and resources into doing that. And so we're becoming an anti-lead gen company. And so that's the only thing that I wanted to hit on again. Outside of that, no. I mean, we sit here and talk for hours, but there's nothing pertinent that we got to go hit again.
Sweet. Brandon, where can people find out more about you and your anti-lead generation company?
landyleads.com. You can book a call with me at Landy Leads. If you want to get on the newsletter / blog, kind of get the announcements as we build out little parts of this, I'll be doing little behind the scenes releases of what I'm building. brandonparker.com, and just put your email there, and then I'll give you updates as we build.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure getting to talk with you and dive deep into your business, and every point of the conversation I think resonated with both of us, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners. So everyone, this is Brandon Parker with Mason McDonald and Dan Haberkas on the Big Picture Blueprint, signing off.